heavy metals in drinking water and how to propose ways of removing them. My name is Daniel Maselli. I'm the focal point of SDC's thematic network RésEAU, which was one of the organizing entities together with our other network on climate, disaster risk reduction and environment, CDE, and working also with the Regional Hub in Lima, part of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation in the field. So we have our second webinar. We had already one go on Tuesday in Spanish, so we hope that you will enjoy as the others did. It's a nice program, a bit dense, so we will also be strict on keeping the time. What we also offer again is a translation, so you can click if you prefer to have the translation from English, which will be the main language today, into French or into Spanish. That's one option you have. And beside that, we then also have some rules for the housekeeping, which we'll see in a minute. We do by default mute your microphone, and we give you the option and the possibility to ask questions or make comments or add information from your side in the chat. So use the chat regularly and intensively as you wish. And should you have problems to hear or to see the connection, just try to restart. And if you have more problems, you have an email address of our technical support by Cesar Robles on the right bottom of this slide. So try to connect to him, but we hope you will manage. It will be recorded, so for those who may miss the first few minutes, you can also re-listen to that. Now, besides the housekeeping, what is most important is the program. We'll have very soon some introduction and welcome words by Helen Gamben, also with some background information on why do we have this webinar on that topic, where does it come from. We'll then have 4 presenters, speakers, which I will highlight when they start talking. And after this main piece, meal piece of the webinar, we'll have towards the end some comments by Divya about the presentations, and we'll open for questions and answers. We'll try to answer as many as we can, but we'll also provide written answers for those questions we could not answer. We can already announce. And then we have Helen again taking the floor at the end for a summary of the learnings. And we'll do a short evaluation round at the end with a closing, trying to stick to the time within 60 minutes. So let's then immediately move forward. And I hand over the floor to Helen for her introduction and welcome words. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, good afternoon also from my side to everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you in the name of the Regional Hub Lima of the SDC to this webinar on the removal of heavy metals from drinking water. We will hear today, as Daniel already mentioned, 3 experts who will share with us the results of a promising experience with this innovative technology developed by Blue Act in Peru. And a colleague from SDC will comment on the experiences with the same technology in India. Next slide, please. In Peru, next slide. Thank you. In Peru, water contamination with heavy metals represents a public health problem of great relevance. According to information from the Ministry of Health, it is estimated that more than 10 million people, or 30% of the total population, are at risk from exposure to heavy metals. In view of this problem, the International Cooperation, or SDC, committed to contribute to reduce exposure risks in the populations most affected by the presence of arsenic and lead in water. It supported financially the validation of an innovative technology developed by Blue Act Technologies. This is a spin-off company of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, the ETH. It's an institution recognized worldwide for its innovations with more than 20 Nobel Prize winners. And the validation project had a duration of 1.5 years and showed very promising results. Next slide, please. So therefore, we decided to organize or co-organize with the RésEAU and the CDN network this webinar in order to share with you the results of this pilot and the main lessons learned during the validation process, and to provide you with an innovative technological option to mitigate the impact of the presence of heavy metals in drinking water. Finally, I invite you to download the publication of the summary of the experience by scanning the barcode shown in this slide. And with this, I wish you all a very enriching webinar and hope that you can take valuable lessons learned back to your respective contexts. And back over to Daniel.
Thank you very much, Helen, for embedding our webinar into the context of its background and history. We will now move to the next slide and have a first glimpse of the 4 speakers, a gender-balanced panel. And we will soon start with Laura, and I will introduce her, of course. But before we do so, we would like to quickly know a few things from you. The first question, and this will be done through the Mentimeter. You see the code here and the QR code as well, and you find in the chat also the link and again the information. We start then right now with the first question. It will take a little time for you to connect, but then those who are quick can already provide their answer. We would like to know from which country you are actually connecting today to this webinar. There will be 4 short questions, and that's the first one. So let's see who is connecting from where. Okay, at the moment, Switzerland is heading the hit list here, but great that we have also North Macedonia, so from the Balkans, somebody joining, and of course, Peru. I say, of course, because that's where also the idea for these webinars emanated, with a publication that was just highlighted by Helen before. So there are 11 responses, but we are close to 30 participants, including, of course, the speakers. But let's hope that there will be still a few more answers. And then I think we will move to the next question. Yeah, let's see if we increase the number of responses with the second one. Yes, thank you. 2 more reached us. Okay, great. And yes, a new country appears, South Africa, and also the USA. So we have increased a bit the diversity and geographical spreading. Great. Now, let us please know from which organization you join. So it can be like the precise name or just like the category, whatever you think is appropriate to connect you to the organization you are working for and with. EBP is a company based in Switzerland, I believe, which is a engineer-oriented company. We have from North Macedonia, we see the Faculty of Civil Engineering in Skopje, ETH Zurich. So we have 9 responses so far. Oh, okay. Also from the Federal Office of Civil Protection, the laboratory in Spiez, which is also quite renowned for those working in that sector with analysis, amongst others, on nuclear contamination, government-owned water utility. Okay, there's a wide range. That's great because we'll have then a richer like interaction, hopefully with the chat and then with the Q&A session. Let's move quickly to the third question, which is a first content question, asking you to say with which methods of extraction you are familiar. So you have these 5 options and you can indicate your knowledge and familiarity with these technologies, from I don't know at all to I know them very well. And let's see which one of these are more reverse of Moses so far. Yeah. We'll wait for a bit more representative picture after most of participants will hopefully have responded. Thanks for Nadine joining from Cameroon. So we have increased also now having the African continent with us. Thanks for having added that. And yes, what we see right now is that there is a familiarity actually with most of the proposed procedures, but in the middle, in an average knowledge. So let's hope that we will shed some more light and be very specific with some quite thrilling technologies, like alluded by Helen before. And we move to the last question. Great. I thought there was the question about how many people know the number of people affected by contamination, but obviously we skip that. That's fine. So let's then immediately move to the presentation, to the first presentation, and I'll introduce now Laura Velasquez, who will be speaking actually on behalf of Sarah Marks, who did make the speech with the first webinar. Laura is a project officer at the Solid Waste Management Group in Sandeck, which is belonging to the so-called EAWAG in Switzerland, an institution also linked to the ETH Zurich. And what I think I would add to what you read already here about Laura is that she focuses on behavior change strategies in the waste sector. And I think this is something valid in many in the fields of we are active. How do we go the last mile from understanding and knowing and changing behavior? And this is valid for us as well. So I think it's a fascinating and highly important, highly relevant field of research. So happy to have you with us, Laura, and you will give a general introduction now on the human consumption and how this resonates with public health problems. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for the introduction, and hi to everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and I'd say let's dive right in. Next slide, please. All right, so actually 1 in 3 people worldwide lack access to safe drinking water, and heavy metals play an important role here because heavy metals contaminate drinking water supplies worldwide and have a significant health impact. For example, chronic exposure to arsenic can cause skin thickening, which is called hyperkeratosis, as well as cancer and other diseases. Consumption of high levels of fluoride, on the other hand, is linked to bone and joint deformities. And then there's other chemical contaminants in drinking water, which include lead, manganese, cadmium, and iron. Next slide, please. There are roughly 120 million people in over 50 countries exposed to unsafe levels of arsenic in their drinking water. And that threshold is defined as 0.01 milligrams per liter. Now, this map here shows that arsenic affects populations in a very uneven ways. The exposure being concentrated in Asia, specifically South Asia. But this map also shows that many populations on other continents are affected as well. Next slide, please. Then there's also lead. Now, lead in drinking water is also a major public health concern, and there's different pathways of how lead actually gets into the drinking water. First, for example, lead-containing components in the water system can leach into a household's drinking water supply by the plumbing, by the service pipes, or even the well and hand pump components can contain lead. Then there's also lead present in the source water, either leaching from the bedrock itself or due to industrial pollution. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to monitoring these chemical components, there is a recently published WHO guideline for small water supplies, which provides guidance in terms of minimum frequency or location of monitoring. And these recommendations differ depending on whether the water supply is at household level, it's community or professionally managed. For example, here you can see for a community managed supply without monitoring, it's recommended to monitor around twice a year at the point of collection. Now, I will shift to removal options for waters impacted by heavy metals. Next slide, please. There are many technologies and options, and removal can place also at different scales. For example, at household scale, community, or even a city scale. For now, I will highlight two technologies that are very commonly used all around the world. And this will give some context for the new alternative method that our colleague Srinath will present later on. Now, here you can see the first example is usually used at community scale, and it's called the Nalgonda technique. This technique makes use of precipitation coagulation process. As you can see here, the water enters the system and it's mixed with aluminum sulfate, here described as alum, and calcium hydroxide, here as lime, and they act as coagulants. Now, after that, when the flocks are formed, they settle through a sedimentation process. And at the final stage, there is clarification by rapid sand filtration. Advantages of this technique are that they use readily available chemicals and it can run very inexpensively. But on the downside, it can require a lot of labor to replenish the system, and it's actually only capable of moderate fluoride removal. And lastly, it produces a significant amount of waste. Next slide, please. Then a second example is one at household level, and it's arsenic removal, a filter called the Sono filter. This filter is used widely in Bangladesh, and it involves, like it can be seen here in this picture, a two-bucket system, where the first bucket oxidizes and absorbs the arsenic, and then the water passes through a layer of iron scraps. Then in the second bucket, the precipitated iron is removed by filtration through sand and wood charcoal. A major advantage of this technique is that it's relatively inexpensive and very easy to use, and it uses locally available materials. However, arsenic removal with this technology, the levels of removal can vary, and it doesn't work really well if the water contains sulfate or phosphate. And then lastly, there's the disadvantage that there's a general problem that households don't use it very consistently. Next slide. And with that, I want to thank you for participating in this webinar and listening. And here are some resources that I have mentioned in the presentation and some more, which are available freely online. Thank you very much. On to the next expert.
Thank you very much, Laura. Yes, indeed. We are moving now to the second presentation by Srinath Polisetti. He is a lecturer at the ETH Zurich, but foremost also Chief Technical Officer of Bluac Technologies as a shareholder company. And I think we'll understand that much better when he tells us about this innovative technology, as he has a lot of experience in sustainable nanotechnologies for water purification. So I think we'll discover something quite interesting, which hopefully many of you won't know yet about protein nanofibrils being extremely useful to purify water. So Srinath, let us discover this approach and technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, for a kind introduction. And I'm from Blue Actor and ETH. Basically, what we do is the water purification by using protein nanofibers. This protein is just from milk-based or even plant-based. But the major aim is to remove the most difficult pollutants from the water, especially the countries like Peru, where the mining is the major resource, and the water will get contaminated with heavy metals during this process. Next slide, please. So heavy metal removal is thanks to Laura to explaining it, the technologies and all. There are several technologies are available, especially like coagulation, adsorption, membrane process, membrane distillation, ionic synthesis. But every technique has some positives and negatives, especially some techniques are low in efficiency, for example, like coagulation, but these membrane processes are energy intensive and also it's expensive. So in order to make these decade-old technologies for better efficiency and better sustainability, Blue Act developed a disruptive nanotechnology that is highly efficient and also cost-effective. And we use raw materials from food-grade materials, especially like milk proteins. So by this way, we can remove the heavy metals very in a proper way, even from community level, even from household level, even from municipal level. Next slide, please. So this is about the technology. Basically, like as I mentioned, our core material is milk. After removing the cheese from the milk, whatever is left over is called the whey, like buttermilk, and this whey having a lot of protein rich. And during our research, we identify that this protein have binding sites to adsorb many heavy metals, some of them precious, some of them are natural groundwater pollutants, by coordination chemistry, like metal ligand coordination chemistry. When we convert this protein into protein nanofibers, it is more robust and also it is more stable, so that the surface area is also increased very high, converting the protein into protein nanofibers. When we pass the water through this one, these heavy metals will be adsorbed inside this media. Basically, this media is a combination of these protein nanofibers and activated carbon. This is a patented technology. And the water will be filtered by adsorption process, and we remove multiple dissolved pollutants. Means these ions are not in particulated form, these are in ionic form, like when you in a metal ionic form, so that we remove these heavy metals, radioactive pollutants, arsenic, fluoride, and viruses, multiple pollutants. We can also regenerate this one, and also if there is any precious metals, we can also recover it. For example, in mining waters, sometimes it's gold or something, we can also recover it. Next slide, please. And this is the removal efficiency on the y-axis. You can see that the removal efficiency is more than 99% for multiple heavy metal ions. And it not only remove single pollutants, at the same time, it remove multiple pollutants simultaneously, especially natural groundwater pollutants like arsenic 3 and arsenic 5, and lead and fluoride. We remove it more than 99.9 efficiency. Even reverse osmosis, it works only for arsenic 5. It doesn't work for arsenic 3. But by using our technology, we can remove both these pollutants. It not only remove inorganic pollutants, it also remove organic and biological pollutants, some pesticides, pharmaceuticals, are even like color, smell from the water, and microbiology like bacteria and viruses can be removed. Next slide, please. These are our products, how it look like, and especially the granulated media GraPro, which is like a sand having this activated carbon and protein nanofibers together. We put them in a vessel, so it depends upon a household or to a municipal level. We can filter them and membranes, and these are household products which is connected directly to the water faucet for a small scale water treatment purposes. Next slide, please. So the advantage of this technology is it's more than 99% removal efficiency, and also the operational costs are very minimum compared to reverse osmosis because we don't need any energy. It works by gravitational force, and also it will fit to a retrofit solution, so you don't need to invest a lot of money. And if I put a sustainability aspect, and Blue Act is on the top right corner because it remove multiple pollutants very efficiently and sustainability compared to what is existing in the market. And next slide, please. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Herbert. Indeed, a fascinating discovery regarding an innovative technology. What we do now is we will do a deep dive now in the Peruvian context by giving the floor to Herbert. Sorry, I wanted to say Srinand before. Apologies. Herbert is already flagged here on the next slide. He will explain how in Peru technologies were used to remove heavy metals, and Herbert is a civil engineer. He is specialized in the management of water supply systems, but also excreta disposal, wastewater treatment, solid waste disposal, risk management, and also impact assessment in basic sanitation, with over 20 years of work experience in the public and also the private sector in Peru. So Herbert, the floor is yours. It will be in Spanish, but there will be translation provided, as said at the initially at the beginning, sorry, of the webinar. Here you go. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Vamos a compartir una bonita experiencia en la aplicación de una tecnología para remover metales pesados en el área rural del Perú. Es una experiencia auspiciada por la Cooperación Internacional COSUDE. Adelante, por favor. El Perú es un país que tiene aproximadamente 33 millones de habitantes, 24 regiones, y uno de los temas que se tiene en evidencia ahora que se están haciendo caracterización a la calidad del agua es la presencia de metales pesados en casi todo el país. Se tiene la presencia prioritaria de arsénico, mercurio, plomo, cadmio, ¿no? Como contaminantes, y se estima que más de 6 millones de personas están potencialmente expuestas, especialmente al riesgo de exposición del arsénico y otros metaloides. Adelante, por favor. Ante este problema, por supuesto, existe una gran presión social. Aquellas localidades, centros poblados en los cuales se ha detectado la presencia de metales pesados, pues expresan su preocupación, los tomadores de decisión, los funcionarios públicos, los equipos técnicos tienen un reto muy grande porque, como hemos escuchado a Laura, definitivamente la presencia de estos metales pesados en el agua para consumo humano, pues genera una seria amenaza para la salud. Es por eso que en el Perú, el ente rector, el Ministerio de Vivienda, Construcción y Saneamiento, pues ya tiene como un gran reto justamente solucionar este problema en la calidad del agua, ¿no? En todos los sistemas rurales en los cuales se ha identificado la presencia de metales pesados. Y en documentos rectores, como en el Plan Nacional de Saneamiento, ya se reconoce este problema de contaminación, ¿no? Como una seria amenaza, y por supuesto se están dando los espacios para poder validar opciones tecnológicas que puedan solucionar este problema. Adelante, por favor. Ante este contexto es de que se implementa este proyecto. Este proyecto, esta iniciativa es un estudio piloto que justamente buscó validar qué tan eficiente, qué tan efectivo es esta tecnología desarrollada por Blue Act para poder remover metales pesados en el agua para consumo humano en un contexto rural. Es muy importante ver ese contexto rural. Y se implementaron, ¿no?, algunos prototipos en 4 regiones del país. Adelante, por favor. Se han validado 2 presentaciones de esta tecnología. Un primer contexto ha sido el contexto domiciliario, es decir, a nivel filtros domiciliarios que han sido instaladas en aproximadamente 30 viviendas en estas 4 regiones del país para poder ver pues qué tan eficiente es la remoción, y como van a ver más adelante, pues esta experiencia ha ido teniendo prototipos iniciales hasta llegar al prototipo que ustedes pueden ver en la imagen de la izquierda. Se tiene aproximadamente eficiencias de tratamiento entre 4.000 y 8.000 litros por cada cartucho, los cuales tienen que ser reemplazados cada 6 meses. Y por supuesto, este rango de tratamiento depende, pues, qué tan contaminada se encuentra el agua. Y como pueden ver también los costos de tratamiento por metro cúbico del agua, es importante mencionar que estos costos van a bajar sustancialmente, estimamos hasta en más del 50%, cuando se tenga una mayor demanda y por supuesto los costos de importación disminuyan considerablemente. Los buenos resultados con digamos, con esta presentación del producto a nivel domiciliario nos ha permitido escalar utilizando el material en su presentación granulada, es decir, ya no a nivel de conexión domiciliaria, ¿no?, sino a nivel colectivo. Y los resultados también han sido muy interesantes, ¿no? Para que tengan una idea, 1 kilo de este material puede tratar entre 40.000 a 70.000 litros de agua, ¿no? Y el costo de tratamiento va, como ven en la imagen, entre 15 céntimos de dólar hasta casi medio dólar. Vuelvo a repetir que estos costos consideramos que van a bajar sustancialmente cuando se tenga una mayor demanda y, por supuesto, los costos de importación disminuyen. Adelante, por favor. Como les comenté, iniciamos esta validación a nivel domiciliario. En las imágenes ustedes pueden ver aquellos prototipos iniciales con los que empezamos a validar la tecnología y con estrategias muy importantes de participación de los usuarios, ¿no?, que ha generado una motivación en mejorar la calidad de agua que ellos vienen consumiendo. Hemos recibido todas las recomendaciones y sugerencias para poder hacer más asequible este filtro, ¿no?, especialmente en acciones de operación, mantenimiento, ubicación, etcétera. Es que se ha llegado a un prototipo único, el cual, por supuesto, está dando muy buenos resultados. Adelante, por favor. Los resultados nos están mostrando o nos han mostrado, puesto que hemos validado esta tecnología a concentraciones de 10, 20 hasta 30 veces más que el límite máximo permisible, que ya fue mencionado, de 0.01 miligramos por litro o 10 partes por millón. Como pueden ver en las gráficas, estos puntos en rojo son las concentraciones del agua antes del filtrado, y los puntos verdes representan pues las concentraciones a las cuales hemos llegado, ¿no?, una vez que el agua ha sido filtrada. Y la línea del medio pues es el límite máximo permisible. Entonces, estos buenos resultados nos han mostrado que esta tecnología pues sí tiene muy buenos resultados, y a raíz de esta experiencia a nivel de conexión domiciliaria, adelante por favor, es que hemos pasado a validar esta tecnología a nivel sistemas colectivos. Hemos iniciado la experiencia validando pequeños prototipos, tipos kiosco de agua, en los cuales las familias acceden. La primera imagen que ustedes pueden ver a mano izquierda corresponde a un prototipo hecho artesanalmente con materiales locales, en los cuales por algunos problemas de turbiedad en el agua tiene unidades previas, digamos, de acondicionamiento, y la tercera unidad es la unidad en la que se encuentra el material granular filtrante y que por supuesto permite la remoción del metal pesado. En este caso, el arsénico, a concentraciones de aproximadamente 30 veces más que el límite máximo permisible. Y los resultados, pues, han sido muy interesantes. Y un tema muy importante es que también en pequeñas plantas de tratamiento existente es que se ha podido acondicionarlas, se ha podido reemplazar el material existente por este nuevo material de la tecnología, y la eficiencia de tratamiento en estas nuevas plantas también ha sido muy interesante. Adelante, por favor. Como pueden ver, al igual que en el nivel de conexión domiciliaria, los resultados, la eficiencia de remoción, en este caso del arsénico, ha sido tan igual como a nivel de los prototipos domiciliarios muy interesante. Es decir, se ha podido tener muy buenas eficiencias de remoción cumpliendo el marco normativo de los límites máximos permisibles mencionados anteriormente. Adelante, por favor. Es por eso que actualmente ya se tienen 6 plantas construidas, financiadas con fondos privados, en este caso, ya se han instalado más de 4 toneladas de este material granular en un ámbito rural para tratamiento y concentraciones, ¿no?, de básicamente arsénico, cadmio, y caudales de tratamiento que van entre medio litro a 2 litros por segundo, ¿no? Aspectos muy importantes que vienen siendo ya brindando, digamos, el servicio a estas poblaciones rurales en la zona sur del país. Adelante, por favor. ¿Qué lecciones aprendidas podemos tener de esta experiencia, ¿no? Definitivamente se ratifica que la calidad del agua es muy importante para que las familias, los usuarios, puedan tener una mayor valoración de este servicio. Y mucho más cuando se tiene la presencia de metales pesados y la familia o el usuario sabe los efectos adversos de tener y de consumir un agua con presencia de metales. La experiencia nos ha permitido adaptar esta tecnología no solamente a un nivel domiciliario, sino también a un nivel colectivo. Y como es lógico, como hemos visto en los costos, por el factor de economía de escala, la recomendación es la implementación en sistemas colectivos porque se mejoran las acciones, las actividades de operación y mantenimiento. Una característica muy importante es que este material puede ser regenerado, es decir, conforme entra en funcionamiento por absorción, va disminuyendo en el tiempo su eficiencia, de la manera que se puede regenerar este material mediante lavados, utilizando soda cáustica u otros productos, para poder volver a tener la eficiencia de remoción, y eso incrementa la vida útil de este producto, el cual, por supuesto, llegado un momento, debe ser repuesto. Un tema muy importante en el Perú es que para que una tecnología pueda ser adecuadamente aplicada, pues tiene que tener un reconocimiento oficial. Es por eso que consideramos importante, ¿no?, la difusión y el reconocimiento oficial de esta tecnología, así como la facilidad de acceso en el mercado local para el uso masivo, ¿no es cierto?, en función a la presentación de la tecnología, sea a nivel cartuchos, filtros domiciliarios o a nivel granular. El fortalecimiento de capacidades se convierte también en un aspecto muy importante. Es decir, todos los actores vinculados a la implementación y a la solución de un problema vinculado a la calidad del agua, partiendo por el personal técnico, partiendo por los diseñadores, partiendo por los formuladores, los tomadores de decisión, y por supuesto la familia, se convierten, y es necesario un fortalecimiento para el entendimiento en el uso de la tecnología y facilitar adecuadamente su escalamiento. Adelante, por favor. Finalmente, consideramos que con la aplicación de esta tecnología se mejoran los niveles de remoción de metales pesados en el agua. Una característica muy importante y un tema que en campo lo hemos podido validar es que la tecnología puede ser fácilmente adaptada a infraestructuras existentes. La tecnología es el material, es el insumo. Es decir, nos hemos encontrado con infraestructura existente en la cual hemos podido adaptar, acondicionar este material filtrante para mejorar los niveles de remoción. Y eso, por supuesto, ha recalcado en menores costos económicos en comparación al uso de otras tecnologías, y las acciones de operación y mantenimiento, por supuesto, se han visto también facilitadas por el buen funcionamiento de esta tecnología. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you very much, Herbert, for this excellent deep dive into the Peruvian context with application in real communities and also the scaling up with full-fledged installations. I think that was quite interesting. And now we move to the last speaker, which is Divya Kashyap Sharma. She is the Deputy Head of Cooperation of the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation in India. And she normally focuses on innovative actions. So that's also quite congruent with what we're doing today on climate change, environment, and this in rural, urban, and mountain landscapes or contexts. Now, what is going to be interesting is to see how the technology that Srinath presented before is actually having an impact and functioning in the Indian context. So please, the floor is yours, Divya. Let us know.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you for giving the SDC India office an opportunity to also discuss its experience with Blue Act and process of assessing and validating its effectiveness. We actually supported Blue Act to assess the long-term effectiveness and efficient performance of its water filtration technology for removal of fluoride and arsenic contamination from drinking water supply systems, both at a household level as well as on community hand pumps in different parts of India. Just like the Peru experience, the results obtained from this feasibility study were very encouraging. For instance, after filtration with the Blue Act technology, the fluoride concentration dropped from 4 parts per million to below 1 part per million. Similarly, the arsenic concentration dropped dramatically from 70 to 100 parts per billion to much below 10 parts per billion. The water sample was also tested over an 8-month period, and this helped validate that both the community-based as well as the individual household-based water filtration systems worked with very high efficiency, ensuring long-term removal of these heavy metal contaminants. The successful results of this project helped gain interest of the government of one of the largest states of India, Uttar Pradesh, who then invited Blue Act to implement this technology in the water supply system of 30 villages in that particular state. I'm sure you are aware, and it was also shown in the map earlier, that groundwater contamination is a big concern across India. As of December 23, it was reported that nearly 35 million people across the country have groundwater that is contaminated by heavy metals like fluoride and arsenic. This, combined with Government of India's mission to provide tap water connections to every household by the end of this year, has created an unprecedented urgency to implement effective solutions to increase access to safe water. While earlier it was said that there are a number of technologies which are available, in India, what has been found is that while many technologies manage to prove their value in removal of one or the other contaminant, at a lab scale, very few manage to offer a solution that offers sustained removal of multiple contaminants and can be easily deployed at scale. The Blue Act technology has certainly successfully demonstrated its versatility on both these fronts. The fact that technology is adsorption-based and, unlike RO systems, requires only a minimal amount of energy and does not waste water during its operations makes it a green and a sustainable solution, especially for a country like India. Another great plus is that the household units are simple to install, operate, and maintain. The positive experience that we had under this pilot initiative has helped us also decide to take this technology now as part of our project in Himalayas, where we are working with the government on rejuvenation of the mountain springs. These mountain springs are lifelines for the local communities who do not have any other source of water for meeting their drinking water needs. The chemical analysis of some of the springs where rejuvenation work is being carried out revealed that heavy metal and microbiological contamination is a big concern. When we talked to the administration of these regions, they clarified that technologies like reverse osmosis were not an option because of multiple concerns. One is the need for stable availability of electricity and worries about expulsion of salt-laden water into the surrounding lands or spring waters itself. Following this, a decision was taken to test and the Blue Act technology at both household and community level. The actual deployment is yet to start, but we are very confident that the solution will prove its worth once again and also become very attractive for the public sector entity in the mountains of India, to upscale this technology. Thank you so much, and back to you, Daniel.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Divya. And thanks to all actually who have already asked quite a number of questions in the chat during the presentations, and also for the speakers who have already provided quite a number of answers. We still have a few minutes now to dive into one or two questions, and then we will hand over to Helen for the wrap-up. Actually, the first one is from Klaas van der Veen, and it's a combination of a few short questions. What is the removal capacity per gram or specific surface? That is addressed to Herbert on life of filters, but also on Srinath on ions. And what end of life indicator for households water filter exist, and when to change the cartridge? So it's quite a series of technical questions, but practical ones on these two technologies. So let's start with Herbert and then move to Srinath.
Muy bien. En nuestro caso, la validación, uno de los parámetros importantes ha sido la velocidad de filtración. Y esta velocidad de filtración, aproximadamente, la hemos tenido entre 3 a 5, ¿no?, metros por hora. Y tiempos de concentración, es decir, de contacto del agua con el material, recomendado, ¿no es cierto?, el mayor tiempo posible, aproximadamente unos 10 minutos de contacto nos ha permitido hacer una remoción. Srinath va a complementar la respuesta con respecto a la capacidad de gramos por kilo.
Yeah.
You want to complement? Yes, please, Srinath.
Yes, and the grams per kilogram, it also depends upon what are the different metal ions are present in the water. Sometimes it's a combination of different metals. Normally, we remove up to 10 grams per kg of the material. That is, if it is in ppb or ppm range, together with many other metal ions. That is means in order to have high removal efficiency, we can go up to that range.
Great, thank you very much. For the last round of this live Q&A, I would like to combine two questions. One is from Corazon Acheng on, do nanofibril filters require any form of energy to work? And combined with the one posed by Nathalie Semaros, are there any disadvantages of this technology? Yes, to see whether we do have to flag also not only the positive aspects.
Okay, maybe I will answer this question as well, especially related to the energy usage. Why we are more sustainable is because we have high removal efficiency by adsorption, and also many membrane technologies may have the efficiency, but the downside is they need to use high pressure pumps. Okay, but in our case, many of our installations in Peru, we don't have sometimes not even a pump. It's in the middle of mountains, and the water is coming from the spring water sources. And basically the water comes from the mountain and then collected in the reservoir, and then it will pass to the filter media and then directly filtered from this one. Okay. So the energy perspective, like as I mentioned it in the technology, you save a lot of energy cost. The downside of this one is especially what exactly disadvantages of the technology. We don't remove the salt, especially like we cannot convert seawater into drinking water. And that is also other side, it is positive because some ions like sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, these are needed. These are the essential minerals for our body. So the drinking water always need to have these minerals. So that is one aspect which is also positive on other way.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I think we can actually move to the summary or the key takeaways, if this is good here, and listen to Helen. What are your thoughts regarding the presentations we heard, and also a bit maybe the discussions we were just capable to follow either on chat or now live with a few questions at the end? So the floor is
Yeah,
yours.
thank you very much, Daniel. And thank you to all the presenters and the participants for this very rich discussion and presentations. Well, I would try to summarize the main points of today's discussion. As we've heard, more than 120 million people in over 50 countries are exposed to unsafe levels of arsenic in drinking water. Its exposure is highest in Asia, especially in the south, as well as in parts of Africa, North and South America. The technology developed by BlueAct is capable of removing multiple contaminants simultaneously, including inorganic and organic contaminants, as well as radioactive contaminants, with an efficiency up to 99%. Field tests in Peru validated that the filters are capable of removing concentrations of arsenic whose values exceed 30 times the maximum permissible limits. So the granular material can be regenerated, allowing it to be reused before being replaced, increasing its life cycle and reducing treatment costs. This is a cost-efficient technology. For example, in rural collective systems, the cost of treatment is from 15 cents to 44 cents per square meter of water treated, compared to $3 per square meter treated for a conventional system. This is the case for Peru. And it does not require energy nor chemicals for operation. It is comparably easy to operate and maintain. It's a simple and versatile technology, adaptable to different existing or new treatment systems at household and community level, or for industries. It can best be considered an option for public and private investment projects benefiting mainly rural and vulnerable populations. The pilot project has also shown that valuation of water by the beneficiaries' families has increased, and in the case of Peru, they are willing to pay for the service generated. For its upscaling, however, the commitment and ownership of the governments is key, as we have heard from both cases in Peru and India. And there is an important potential to mitigate the negative impact on health suffered by those exposed to heavy metals in drinking water, if the governments recognize the technology as another option to address the problem. Thank you very much. I give back again to Daniel.
Thank you so much, Helen, for trying to summarize that and also have your takeaways shared with the audience. We're slowly coming to an end. We all hope that actually with the presentations and the stimulating slides and the links to the documents, your appetite has been raised so much that you will do what Laura actually is focusing herself in her work, which is the behavioral change strategies. Because yes, we often follow webinars or take trainings, but then we go back and continue to do exactly the same as we have always done. And it needs a little extra energy indeed to actually move towards exploring new opportunities. So take advantage of that. Connect to the speakers, to all of them. Try to read and have a look at the well-prepared documentation and the reports that are available, and try to dare to change something so that we really move forward and we do not only listen to innovations, but we also take advantage from them. So with that, I invite you now to participate in the final poll. We will be interested to know from you, and that will be via Zoom. We have two questions. How do you rate the quality of this webinar, the short 60 minutes we just spent together? And the second one will be on the usefulness, the relevance of what was presented for your daily work or for yourself. So you have the two questions, and please give your rating so that we can also learn from this exercise and try to improve our quality and usefulness for the next webinar on another topic. And thank you again for having participated, both actively as speakers, but also as active audience with the many messages I could follow a little bit while moderating in the chat. And we will provide the recording and make it accessible for all of you and for others if you want to share with colleagues. And as indicated and promised at the very beginning, there were questions that maybe would have not been answered yet or have only had a quick and partial response. We will provide written full responses to all questions and make them available very soon as well, so that there is nobody leaving without an answer this webinar of today. Thank you very much again. And I think we let just the time go for you to respond on the 2 questions. I open, though, quickly, as we have 1 or 2 minutes left, the floor to the speakers and also to Helen, in case you have a last comment or a last takeaway, key message you want to share again or emphasize. Is there any appetite for that? Laura, Srinath, Herbert, Divya?
Especially our contact details for Blue Act is www.blueact.com, and please feel free to reach me at the email address srinath@blueact.com. So I'm happy to answer any other questions which is not answered during this session, or I'm happy to have meetings if there is any different problem and all.
Excellent.
Por
And
mi
yes,
parte,
we do some. Sorry, please.
Sí, por mi parte yo también quisiera agradecer por la oportunidad de compartir esta bonita experiencia en un área rural del Perú. El impacto y la aceptación de esta tecnología básicamente viene por el usuario, viene por la familia, viene por la persona, quienes valoran el tener y el consumir un agua y una tecnología adaptada, que simplemente por el paso del agua a través de la misma es que tenemos una alta eficiencia. Nos sentimos muy contentos de haber podido participar en esta experiencia piloto y estamos seguros de que se convierte en una tecnología muy válida para ser implementada en áreas rurales de todo el mundo.
Thank you very much also for these closing remarks, Herbert. We have some self-advertising publicity on the very last slide. As you can see, the 2 networks, the RésEAU, the Water Thematic Network, and the CDE, Climate Disaster Risk Reduction and Environment, are inviting you or colleagues of yours to join the community, where we have lots of materials that are being shared, but also news updates, trends shown, etc. So if you're not yet yourself registered, consider doing so. And if you are and you think it could be useful for colleagues or partners you're working with, just flag them the opportunity to join either or the RésEAU and the CD 2 networks, which we have as a opportunity to use and connect within SDC. And with that, I would say we stop the webinar here, practically on time, punctually as a Swiss watch. And thanks again for all who participated. And I wish you a nice day, whether it is a short or long one, depending from where you connected.